and I'm here with Michael Herman, and we've just been sharing a laugh about all the things technology related and podcasts. Today, our Zoom was down, and I'm using Riverside for the first time, and we were just chuckling about jumping on and switching gears and all the things that can be awkward. And that's kind of the theme, not really, of our conversation today, but I'm just going to say a few things, and then I'm going to ask you, Michael, just to say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go where the conversation takes us. Cool?
Perfect.
Okay. So for the audience, kind of what I've been doing this season is just having guests on and interviewing people I'm interested in, like just come across on social media. I'm like, hey, you want to chat? And like you're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. So I love learning from people and hearing their stories and curating information for whoever follows this particular podcast. So that's kind of my context. And then I came across your Instagram feed. I don't know, it was sometime before your birthday. And then you did your post for your birthday. And then I think that's when I reached out. I was like, okay, I just got to talk to him. If he's open for it, how fun. So one of the things I really appreciate, Michael, like just looking at your Instagram feed, I know you're on TikTok, like you have a nice balance of covering like topics that are serious and also just playfulness and lightness. And I imagine that dovetails with your life history and work. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you and just ask you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Renee. Yeah, but to speak to the technology issues that we were chuckling about before we got on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like if we haven't all learned by this point to just roll with it, just you gotta just roll with it, right? We can't get upset about it. So I'm thankful that we both were able to roll with it and that we made it work. Um,
Woohoo!
yes. So hi everyone. I'm Michael Herman. I am the founder and executive director of the Outer Loop Theater Experience, which I started about 15 years ago in New York. And the Outer Loop is a theater and humanitarian not-for-profit in the U.S. And we're also an NGO. We're registered as an NGO in Tanzania, where we do a lot of I would say most of our work. So I'm a theater artist primarily, playwright, director.
So
Um,
cool.
and and yeah, it's so great that you found us through social media because we just really recently, Rachel and I, my wife and I, really just recently started these accounts, and
Yeah.
it's really just been amazing meeting folks like you and just everybody reaching out. So yeah, it's really cool.
Cool. Well, can you share with the audience what the handle name is so they have the context?
Sure. So the handle name is My Autistic Husband. So obviously Rachel started it, and it's kind of from her point of view.
Yes.
And yeah, it started on TikTok as kind of like and you touched on it a little bit, not as a joke, but as like a fun, positive kind of just a way. She has always found me. I don't know that I'm necessarily hilarious, but Rachel has always found me hilarious. We know each other for 15 years. We're married for 8, and she's always found me hilarious. But I often felt like she was the only one. Um,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she believed that these little kind of rants that I go on every now and then would be funny for everyone, and at a time, especially in this country, but in the world where we're, I think, in need of laughs as much as possible these days. She
Yeah.
wanted to just share that with people, and those initial few posts were really just kind of about laughing and having fun. And yeah, it grew into, as you know, a really quite large community now that's turned into, and you really hit it on the head, which is nice that you perceive it that way too, because that's the goal,
Yeah.
is to try to balance it with some fun, positivity, laugh, goofy stuff, but also some serious kind of, neurodivergent, autistic issues and questions and discussions.
Perfect. Was that part of the plan then to bring like autism or neurodivergence in, or did it just organically happen?
I think it organically happened. People started to, I think it was driven by the audience, really. People
Perfect.
connecting to a lot of people saying, "Hey, you're putting into work." We get this a lot. These comments. You're able to verbalize what's going on in my head, and it's the
Yeah.
first time I've heard, how I feel expressed. So that lots of those kinds of comments and messages started to fuel this idea. Hey, maybe we should be a little more intentional about this, and really start to talk about challenges and questions that we had early on
Yeah.
and that we have both individually and as a couple, and then starting to do that, really, the fire really was lit in the audience, and we were just
Yeah.
getting, constant, can you talk about this, can you talk about that? So we try our best to really look at everyone's comments and messages and try to incorporate the issues and questions that people have, and then of course some goofy, funny, otter videos every now and then.
I loved it. Yeah. Otter. I wanted to ask you about, I missed it, or I didn't get the whole thing. Minnesota. What was the Minnesota story? The Minnesota ladies?
Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Minnesota's on my mind today. Yeah.
Yeah, the Michigan thing is hilarious, right? So there's this kind of like subplot going on with the channel now where we have like the autistic community, the neurodivergent community, but then we have the Michigan ladies as like a little like inner circle. And that
Oh.
just came where that came from was again during the pandemic
Uh
when we
huh.
were all locked inside and we were watching the news constantly and we're just being bombarded with leaders of different states talking about how they were handling things.
Yep.
I found myself kind of hypnotized by and just so impressed with the leadership of the state of Michigan, who happen to mostly, if not all, be women, from the governor to the attorney general, secretary of state. And I just got on this thing where like these Michigan women are amazing. Right. And that was just something that I was saying a lot over the years. And then Rachel happened to catch it recently. Someone was on, maybe the governor was on talking about something recently, and I happened to be ranting about it, and she caught it on video and posted it. And that just, it like exploded with all of the Michigan women, and now there's a series. Now we have like 3 or 4 Michigan women posts, and I get invited to Michigan, and everyone's saying to Rachel that she has to share me as now I'm their husband too, and but it's so much fun. It's the energy of the Michigan ladies has been infectious and inspiring.
That is awesome. So here's a little backstory of why I even asked. I mean, I'm already like on a tangent with our conversation, so
All good.
everyone
All
enjoy.
yeah.
But I'm from Missouri originally. I live in Arkansas currently, and I'm engaged. My fiance Lance. I did not even know that I said this, Michael. The ope, like I didn't
Oh,
even know that was a thing. And then he like got on like Midwest Facebook pages and started sending me memes, and I was like, oh, I'm like, oh, it is a thing. I
it is the
didn't
thing.
know.
Yeah, I
So
learned that real quickly. Yeah,
yeah, so
it's
so
so
yeah,
fun.
yeah. There's been lots of fun pieces, and as I was getting ready to like talk with you today, I mean, I know I'd pulled some questions about the serious stuff, and I always talk about serious stuff. I mean, my audience is complex trauma survivors. A lot of those folks do have some neurodivergence, right? They intersect.
Yeah,
But I'm like, oh, this is nice that we'll have some playfulness and some
yeah,
levity, but I'm happy to balance it out in any way, whatever we want to talk about.
absolutely. I feel the same way. Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I'm wondering, I'm assuming, Michael, that you have been on your own individual journey. And then with Rachel, like knowing her, you said 15 years married, 8.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, anytime that there's a mixed neurotype, right? Like I just call that the neurospicy relationship.
Yeah.
It's so I'm just curious, like what you would like to share,
Yeah.
in brief about your individual journey, and then we could always talk about couple stuff later too.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so Rachel and I, again, like I said, knowing each other and being together for about 15 years, I only got my diagnosis 3 years ago.
Okay.
So we were together. The majority of the time we're together is me not really knowing why,
Mm-hmm.
neither of us knowing why I was and am the way I am, right?
Yes.
So things like things that things like sensitivities to sound and smells and fabrics and space and
Mm-hmm.
things like meltdowns and lots of neurodivergent autistic behavior meant something different for so long, right? And was perceived as something different for so long.
Yeah.
And for me, that was always just very challenging myself, just, in
Yes.
terms of jobs and, when I was working for others before I started my own company, that series of challenges there, right? Always having
Yes.
challenges with work. And just in friendships and relationships, just feeling like I was misunderstood. I was perceived as kind of difficult to work
Mm-hmm.
with, difficult to have conversations with, very direct and abrupt and maybe cold, right? So a lot of challenges, both physically
Mm-hmm.
and emotionally and mentally myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can only imagine for Rachel that whole time also very
Yeah.
difficult, a lot of that behavior being perceived as one thing, right? So, a miracle that she stuck it out, and I'm lucky that she did even before we knew the whys, right?
Yeah.
Um, because a lot of challenges there. Um, but yeah, once I finally realized what was going on and did some research and went and got an assessment and a diagnosis, I mean, the two of us together, what the relief and
Mm-hmm.
the new kind of the excitement almost about, hey, let's go back and now look at our whole. I have to first relive my entire life, right, and then
Yeah. In reverse. Yeah.
exactly. And
Right.
then we get the chance to, thankfully, because she again is a real, empathetic, understanding, patient person, tough, resilient person. Also was like, hey, let's go back and look at our relationship really and relive all those really difficult moments. And
Yeah.
and and it was, like everyone says, I think, who goes through this, it was both exciting and inspiring,
Mm-hmm.
but also difficult and traumatic, and
Yep.
you're mourning a certain portion of it. But in the end, now 3 years into it and beyond it, I, I'll speak for Rachel, and I because I'm confident that I think I understand what she might say here, but I feel like we both are really, really grateful for having
Hmm.
stuck it out and having wanted to learn about each other through this new lens. And because we did, um, I mean, our relationship is so much stronger and better now than it ever was. And I'm not saying it was easy, but because we both wanted so much to learn about how our relationship really was now redefined and could work going forward, knowing things
Yeah.
like triggers and just how each one's behavior affects the other and what we might be able to do to make it easier for the other person.
Yeah.
It's just been great. But I give her the majority of the credit there because I would argue that I'm the more difficult one to make adjustments for, and that she's wanted to do that and been understanding to do
Mm-hmm.
that, I think is huge.
Yeah, I'm just totally witnessing that. A couple things real quick. Like one of the phrases I heard around the time I was like thinking about my own assessment at 50. Okay,
Yeah,
like I'm in the field, I learned diagnoses, I taught it. I just always thought of myself as like I'm highly sensitive. Like that's what it is, right?
yeah,
And then I learned that there's like an HSP to autism pipeline. I'm like, oh, I just supersonic went through that. So yeah, took 50 years, but I went through it really fast.
yeah.
So once you get that, I mean the phrase is relief and grief. Like
Mm,
relief that I now understand, and like one of your posts I remember that I made a note of is like I'm not broken. Like there's nothing wrong with me. My wiring's different. My capacity's different
yeah,
sometimes. So
yeah. And I
yeah,
really did
yeah,
feel that post was really important for us to share because we hear a lot from folks reaching out to us about that kind of broken feeling. And I
yeah,
definitely felt that way my entire life for also close to 50 years, feeling like instead what I now understand is, definitely not broken, but
Right.
I felt like, oh, society is not broken and I am, right? And now I kind of feel the
Mm-hmm.
opposite. I feel very much like, society is what's broken, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, and we're not. And again, that's, I don't want to make it sound, and I'm always careful to make it sound to folks who aren't quite there yet, that it's
Yeah.
that simple, because it's not.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it takes time, and you do eventually get to that point where you feel like, hey, this is amazing. I'm not broken. I'm just different. And
Yes.
I actually see it even, I would take it a step further, and especially in talking to kids or to parents who are reaching out for advice, with kids, is and I mean this, I'm not just using this language for the sake of it. I really actually would go a step further and say it's a superpower. And
Yeah.
I really do see it that way. And I also have found that that's good language for parents to use with children. But I feel that way as an adult. I really, really do. And so I think you go from, broken to not broken to this is a superpower. I'm a superhero, And there's a lot
Yeah.
about how we are that's, I think, very helpful, not only for each other, but for the neurotypical community as well.
Totally. Yes, I'm resonating. I'm also thinking at the same time. Like I've just seen in people's comments on other accounts, like I resonate with the superpower, like some of the things like pattern recognition was one thing. You know, there's others, but
Yeah.
um, I'll see folks who will say, I don't resonate with that. Like this disables me. I'm not resourced enough. I can't function high enough.
Mm,
Like it's
yeah.
whatever the benefits are, they don't outweigh the cons for some folks. So I'm balancing that out for
Hmm,
people who may be listening.
that's interesting.
And also saying, yeah, I get it. Like a lot of the things that are maybe different,
Hmm.
they are, they really can be such a strengthening. Like when it comes to pattern recognition or special interests, I'm like, you want a therapist or a coach who's like, let me learn all the things about all the people.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you make a good point though. I often I need to be more sensitive to that myself too, that for some folks, depending on where they are on the
Yeah.
spectrum, it can feel much more disabling or debilitating, and I understand that. And that's so, it makes I it hurts my heart to hear that, because I
Yeah.
want those folks to be able to not feel that way, right?
Yeah.
I want them to, and I don't know if you would know of course much better than I here, but my gut tells me that a lot of that has to do with the energy and the feedback and the pressure that they're getting from society or from just
Yes.
the environment. And
Yes.
I that frustrates me, and it bothers me that happens to folks, and that they feel that way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. For
Which,
sure.
for me, even, and I do get, that happens to me as well, to a certain degree. As I think, a lot of my work is in Tanzania. And not only do I love the work we're doing there, and does my work take me there, but the selfish reason to get there as much as I can is to escape the energy here in the US,
Oh,
which is, Rachel and I used to joke about it, that, my capacity for being able to be in the US and kind of deal with the energy and the noise and the just everything that's really kind of abrasive and
yep.
debilitating energy wise for me is about 2 to 3 months. I mean, it
Yep.
starts to get to the point where after 3 months, if I don't leave and go to Tanzania to work, it's not going to be great for me, for Rachel, for folks around me. So I get that to a degree,
Yes.
where when I come back, I have a really tough time the first few weeks coming back from Tanzania, because I'm instantly immersed and assaulted by the noise here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but then I get used to it for a bit, and then it starts to get a little too much for me, and I have to go.
That's awesome awareness, and so I just want to personally say one, back to the superpower and the feeling like, huh, this is a lot, because I definitely struggle with that. There's previous episodes where I've talked with a doctor about like women's health, hormones, late diagnosis, burnout, how that all kind of intersects. And so my truth as of late has been like, I miss my 40s. Like, I miss my energy for my 40s. And I'm grieving it. And I don't know if it'll be back or if this is the new normal. So yeah, I just wanted to say for so many people, I know they struggle with that capacity
Yeah.
and the desire and drive and like, will I have it or will I not? So yeah, there's definitely that piece. But I appreciate that that you have that like awareness and insight. Like that's my time frame. And if not, it's a life force energy situation, I'm sure.
Yeah, and again, I want to be careful to point out that it wasn't. I didn't come to that awareness and realization automatically. Like, here's the answer.
Right.
It took a bunch of trips back and forth over the last few years to start to understand and pay attention to. Hey, it really feels like after this amount of time, I
Yeah.
need to start protecting myself, and Rachel and I need to protect each other's space, and yeah, you know, great. Figured out the formula after a few years, come back, work here for a couple months, start to plan the trip to leave,
Yep.
go feel much better there, and then come back when I need to, do some stuff here. But yeah, it definitely takes a while. But I think it's important for people to
Mhm.
start to pay attention to those things. And what are the things that set off meltdowns or burnouts,
Yep.
and start to say, hey, how do I, if I can, how do I adjust for those things? And I know a lot of
Mhm.
people can't, and that
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to be in the position where, for the most part, I can attempt to make those adjustments when they need to be made. But I get that people can't. Like I get the
Totally.
question a lot. We get the question a lot through the platform, the social media accounts.
Hmm.
What do you do for a job? And then also like any recommendations on like what I should do for jobs, because I can't. And my it's a truthful answer, but I understand the challenge with it is that like I mentioned before, I went through a series of jobs that it just wouldn't work. I couldn't work for anyone, but I didn't know that was why, right? And then years and years and years of destroyed professional relationships, and then let me start my own company, and then it's been great since then. But I
Yeah.
know a lot of people can't do that and just aren't able to do that. I can only communicate my experience, but
Yeah.
for me, the ability to be able to start my own company, which was hard at the beginning, and not being able to take a salary for years and years and years and years.
How far in how far into it are you? I'm curious.
Yeah, so actually, Rachel and our relationship lines right up with the company. We started
Hmm.
the company kind of together. So the company is headed into its 16th year,
Oh
and
wow.
but the truth is, I didn't take a salary. I couldn't afford. Neither of us. Rachel worked with me as well for a while. We couldn't afford to take salaries until 3 years ago. So that's 13 years of running our own company, not being able to take salaries and having to work kind of side jobs to
Yeah.
be able to live. So it's only
Yeah.
been the last 3 years, which coincidentally, I don't know how in the script this might line
No,
up,
you're
but
fine. Yeah.
it's coincidentally
Uh-huh.
uh, around when I got my diagnosis.
Wow.
That like
Wow.
the company started to do well
Wow.
enough that I could start to take a salary. So
Wow.
it's really interesting in like the script of life is kind of what I mean by the script.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, how did that, is that, did that line up that way, or is it just a coincidence? But yeah, so, but I get that when people ask, well, I don't know if I can start my own company, I can't afford, I get that there are challenges to that. But for me,
Yeah.
that was the solution to a lot of the challenges I was facing.
I mean, I just want to witness that and like human to human and like business owner to business owner too, be like, received, because I started in 2022 and, get offers all the time to join group practices. I could be making more money right now
Right.
and be in a different place, so to speak, but I'm like, I just can't. I just can't do it. I've got to be able to have
Yeah. Same.
choice. And yeah, and so thank you to my fiance for being the breadwinner. you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Same.
because
And,
that's real.
same. And for Rachel too, for wanting to be independent and do her own thing and not,
Mhm.
neither of us rely on the other and everybody, and just
Yeah.
yeah, you really, to have a partner who is supportive of the challenges that we go through and
Mhm.
able to make the adjustments professionally and personally is just a huge blessing.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel drawn to? Like, my inclination is to ask the question, like, what are some of the things through this whole journey, personal, professional, social media, relational? So, there's a lot of ways you can go, right?
Yeah.
What do you feel like you've learned along the way? Like, have been like some of the most key, like, ahas that you think you'd like to share?
Oh, as you ask that question, three things pop to mind. And they're in different, one's professional,
Cool.
one's relationship, and one's social media.
Awesome.
The professional one was huge because even though I had already started my own company and been
Hmm.
working before for many years before I got learned why my brain is the way it is,
Yeah.
there were still many, many challenges, right? Always the difficult person to work with, always the person who's, comes in the room and everyone's maybe a little unsure of what the vibe's going to be today, right? Or
Yeah.
so still, and I, in a lot of what we do, there are projects where I have to be the leader. I'm a
Hmm.
director. When we're doing theater projects, I'm the director usually. So I'm leading a group of actors and designers and technicians of, projects with 30, 40, 50 people. So the how being autistic and neurodivergent and in a leadership position presents the set of challenges that I know so
But you know what? I'm
yeah,
interrupting,
go
but I really want to amplify what you're saying because I had an inquiry
ahead.
from a potential person who was thinking about working with me, and that was one of the things. Like, leadership position, I'm perceived as contrary and challenging when I'm direct, and I want to adjust, but I
Yeah.
don't want to mask and da da da. So, like, yeah, please keep
Yeah,
going.
and that was a huge learning curve for me to have to really make some adjustments and say to myself, okay, if a meeting or a project or a group gathering is going to start at 5 o'clock,
Uh-huh.
I need to get there at 3:30 because I need to get in the space and have at least a half hour to 45 minutes myself to adjust to the space and set up the space in the way that I want it. Lighting, sound, just really need to feel like okay, I'm settled in the space before anyone else enters the space, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's learning that I need that time and that I can't just show up when everyone else is going to show up.
So
And then
that's like those transition
yes,
pieces, right? Like in
exactly.
acting. Yep. Hmm.
So that was a change
Hmm.
that I had to learn that I had to make because I didn't know that was a thing.
Yes.
And I had to be very intentional about, I didn't want to mask, but I also needed when people started to show up to not present that I'm like angry or upset in any way. I'm just me, but also I'm not just like, hey, how's everybody doing? Like how most people would want you to be. So I needed to at
Yeah.
least make an adjustment to try to give off the vibe in whatever ways I could that everything's cool. I'm just
Yes.
this is how I am, right? So I had to be a little more
Yes.
intentional about that. And often that meant at the beginning of a process of a new project, either Rachel or I, since we work together a lot, communicating that I am on the spectrum so that, giving that information up front so people have it and
Mm-hmm.
can know that, oh, okay, maybe this isn't Michael's difficult or angry or upset today. He's just, this is how he is, right?
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
adding in a few new steps to the process. And on the at the end of those sessions, like a rehearsal or a show or a project meeting or whatever, also just reminding people that the way I end something is maybe different from the way others might end something. And I'm not going to change that. I'm still going to end it the way I need to end it, but I need to communicate to folks that it doesn't mean that I'm like upset at the end of a meeting or I'm, mad at anybody. I'm just going to be direct. I'm going to be done. I'm going to leave because I need to like my time to recharge and to settle and to process.
We should just trademark that.
Totally, right?
Like he's gonna do the Michael, she's gonna do the Renee.
Well, it's funny that you say that because a lot of our folks that we've worked with regularly on several projects, they
Yes.
call certain things the Michael
Oh, I love it.
because and that's it's true. Once it becomes a thing that people
Mhm.
recognize like the Michael, then it's kind of okay in everyone's eyes, right? And it also
Yeah.
makes me feel better too because people understand me and know.
Yeah.
But that takes a while, right? That's not for new folks, that's not something they're going to right away be receptive to. It takes folks that we've worked with for years to go, oh, that's Michael, and that's okay. So professionally, that's my kind of like the big thing that I thought of when you said professionally was like having to be intentional
Intentional. Hmm.
about understanding what I need and then communicating that to folks that I work with.
So, and I'm just gonna say that's huge because so many like folks with autism, ADHD, other neurodivergence, right? Like I'm gonna say so many of us
Yeah.
have learned to suppress our truth, our needs, our desires. And so to even
Yeah.
allow to explore that is huge, right? And to
Yeah,
accept it and then to start extrapolating with, hey, I'm cool with me.
yeah.
You can be cool with me too.
And I gotta say, totally, and I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Something that's, you know, just been, I think it was, it feels like it was a curse for many years and now is a blessing. But I've always, from day one, been someone who has said, look, I'm not gonna negotiate who I am with you. Like I was, oh, and I can't explain why. I mean, maybe it has something to do with also being an only child. I've often thought that might be a
Oh,
part of it
yeah, yeah.
that I was always very comfortable with, even though I was perceived in a lot of circles as weird or hard to get along with, or, the black sheep or whatever. I was
Uh-huh.
kind of always like, okay, fine. Like you're gonna think what you're gonna think, but I'm cool with who I am,
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
in a lot of ways, and I very much even to this day, like right now, I even have a post-it right there just to make sure I'm always reminded of it. I'm not gonna negotiate who I am with you. Like I am who I am, and
Hmm.
I'm comfortable with that. And I know not everyone is, and I know
Hmm.
that that's a process for everyone. But for me, it was to speak to your point, like
Yeah.
it was necessary for me to want to learn if I wanted to continue to work in the field that I want to work in and do the stuff that I want to do, then I can't suppress it. I need to because I'm happiest when I'm and most successful in the projects we're doing when I'm being who I am.
Your
So
true
what
self.
yeah. And as you know, like you eventually, once you get fully comfortable with that and you're having success with that and you're having kind of good, positive, responses to that professionally, you get more comfortable and okay with it. And then you start to see that you start to draw the right people to you. And then that gives you the confidence to kind of continue on that pattern. And I know I'm simplifying it and making it sound kind of easy, but
Actually, as I'm listening to you, like I've got several things firing that I want to like be like connect
yeah,
the dots.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm following. Did you want
No,
to
go
finish?
ahead. No, no, no. That I was finished.
Okay. So much of what you said, like I've heard in like leadership trainings or in the spaces I'm in, like entrepreneurial stuff, like
Yeah,
when you are when you're good with you and that's embodied, like you don't have to think about it or effort. It's just you're sunk into your truth.
Yeah.
Then you naturally attract and align with
Yeah.
folks who are a good match for you. And then things are more effortless and easy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And
So I
that's
was hearing that.
yeah, and that's I feel like and the two we get that, but and I understand that for folks who don't quite feel that deeply yet,
Yeah.
that's a hard concept to believe in, but I do have to say that it happens, and it maybe if you don't not feeling it yet, the more you can try to do that and attempt to do that and be intentional about it, it's really true. You suddenly start to, as you know, see those folks show up, and you're like, oh, wow, someone who gets me and I get them, and you go right past. You don't even have to do you jump into, what I mean, you jump past
Yes.
all the get to know you stuff and small talk stuff, and you're instantly able to just connect and work together because you understand. And yeah,
Yes.
the more you can do that, the better I think professionally your results will be. And again,
Yeah.
I know it's not easy, but yeah, that's the professional kind of answer.
Cool. And I think the timing of that, like I was just personally resonating with what
Mm.
you were kind of saying. Like I don't know what it was. I sense you have some guesses, but like universe something like or that was the timing of your total truth for alignment combo.
It's
Yeah.
gotta be, right? It's
Yeah.
gotta be something like that. It
Yeah.
has to be. Yeah, it just has to be. Yeah, and then I guess so one was professionally, one was with definitely so relationship wise, yeah, I just cannot, and I know Rachel, we've talked about it before with other folks, and I know she would agree with this, that our relationship, which I alluded to before, it was already great for years,
Okay.
but not perfect, and lots of challenges, especially before my diagnosis, and
Mm-hmm.
lots of challenges. Very,
Mm-hmm.
very definitely a handful of moments throughout our relationship where it could have ended,
Yep.
um, and yet we stuck it out, and without exception, I mean, we are both so grateful for the diagnosis because what it did for us in terms of being able to go back and say, oh, these moments were this, not this,
Yep.
right? And the reason some of this behavior seemed like this is actually because of this, right?
Yes.
And a more concrete example is something like the home we currently live in the
Yep.
last 15 years of our relationship is the first one, which since the diagnosis, but also the first one that feels good. Meaning,
Oh.
I didn't know before that the sounds of the train going by in other apartments, and the narrow temperature window that I'm comfortable with, where if we didn't have control over the heat because the building did, right? Or smells coming from other apartments. So you put all that together, and Michael just seems to be like very irritable all the time and
Yes.
angry for things that for Rachel seemed like, what's the problem? Like, she wasn't bothered by those things, but I'm so bothered that I'm like, I have to leave the house.
Yeah.
So then, knowing what we knew and then looking then for a new place to live, which we're in now, we're able to go, okay, when we look at the place, is it loud? Is the neighborhood loud, right? Is the apartment loud? No, it's quiet, right? Or do we have control over the thermostat in the winter and the summer? Yes. Is it secure, and is there no smells coming in from other people's apartments, right?
Yeah.
So then what I mean by pointing that out specifically, which I know is that then that layer is removed. So our when we're both in the space together that we both live in and share together, all of that tension and that those triggers and that anxiety is just gone, right? So then the
Yes.
relationship doesn't exist inside of that constant, oh, what if there's a bad smell, or what if there's a sound, or what if a train goes. So
Yeah.
that, I think, there's a million of those examples, but that to
Uh-huh.
say that our relationship then, learning all of those things and being able to make the adjustments for the other person,
Uh-huh.
both ways in terms of what she needs and I need, just becomes so much easier because we know the why.
Yes.
Does that make sense? I know I
And
can ramble.
no, no, that's no, you are perfect. I was thinking about something because you know the why. I listened to I don't know if it was a reel on social media, a podcast or whatever, but I wrote this down. I'm just gonna read
Okay.
it. um, it was a woman talking about neurodivergent couples,
Mm,
and she said actually all couples struggle because when you don't know what the needs are, people have a strong probability of thinking they're the same because they love each other.
right.
Like, yeah,
This should just work because we love each other.
yeah. Whether it's like love languages or wiring differences, all the things. But
Yeah.
yeah, and just to share, I was married before, have a son from my first marriage, and he was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD. Our son, once he was old enough, received diagnosis, and I was like, okay, so I'm the normal one, even though I'm HSP, right?
Right.
Right, like not normal, but I can hold it. I'm holding it together while holding it together for them,
Yeah.
but wanting to like
Yeah.
tantrum the hell out and not feeling like I could, right?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when you said that and I thought of that little clip I saw and then just my own personal history, I mean, I know personally I took a lot of things very personally and it was like, what the hell? I have good communication skills. Like I know things like and I'm doing my best. How come I can't get through?
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Rachel would say the same thing, and I know she has, where she, so much of the behavior that she witnessed for so long before the diagnosis was she took personally, right?
Yeah.
He's mad at me. What did I do?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to spend time with me as much as, what she perceives as being like normal.
Yeah.
Just and then for her, I know the learning the why and just and really going being able to go through it and understand and want and her and see watching her want to learn and do the research
Yes.
and want to know, for her has been such a huge relief to know that there's all these like very concrete reasons
Mm-hmm.
why certain behavior exists, and that it's not her, right?
Yes.
Which
Yes.
for her I know was huge, and then for both of us was huge because I, like you said, well, why don't you understand that this isn't what I'm not mad at you, but to her it looks like I'm mad at her, right? And
Yeah.
so there's no way to explain it, but once you both have that understanding and those tools,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to go, oh, cool. If she sees something, oh, that's not, I have nothing, that has nothing to do with me. I'm just going to go over here and do this for a while until he's recharged and reset and all
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's really huge.
I'm.
But again, I'll go back to how important it is for two people to want to stay together and work through that, which I know not everybody maybe has that. And
Right.
so I'm grateful that, again, that Rachel wanted to
Mm-hmm.
understand and learn
Mm-hmm.
and make adjustments. But I think it takes both people. I think me recognizing that she was willing to do that inspired me to want to also understand for her and make the adjustments necessary, right? I think both
Yeah.
people need to be open to that.
I think I think that's true like in all
Yeah.
relationships. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do get the you didn't say it this way, so this is my
Sure.
how it hit me. It's like there's vulnerability, or at least I can say for me, when Lance and I were engaged, when I did my assessments, the little
Yeah.
questionnaires you complete or whatever,
Yeah.
and he did the one for like I forget if it's your spouse or who you live with or whatever, and he and I thought it was cute because he's like, you don't do that, no, and I was like. I'm like, okay. So you guys are probably a little bit further along on the learning curve. So it's helpful to hear that, but where I was going with the vulnerability piece is deciding to lead with it professionally. and
Mm.
like put it on my website and talk about it on social posts and
Yeah.
have it be a part of the podcast. Like that
Yeah.
was that, the coming out, if you will, of this is part of who I am, a large part of who I am. And when I was discussing that and I asked for his input, of course, and he's like, I think you should go for it. And I love you and I'm proud of you. And
Yeah.
when I did, he's like, so proud of you, So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad that we were both lucky enough to have those
Yeah.
reactions. Yeah, and not see you bye.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that I'm glad you said it in that way because it connects and reminded me that third piece was the social media piece, which was that initially I was a little apprehensive and a little nervous
Hmm.
to be that vulnerable on social
Hmm.
media, right? I
Hmm.
initially would Rachel would take the phone out to record me doing something, and I would kind of shut down or get shy about it. Or even if I wouldn't, I would like insist on seeing it before she did anything with it. And
Yep.
I would have certain things I would do or say or watch myself. I would say, "Oh, I'm not necessarily comfortable with that." So it took a
Yeah.
while to to get. It didn't happen immediately. I wasn't like, "Hey, I'm cool with talking about this," right? But back to the same thing as professionally, you if you can start to be okay with it and then you get positive response and
Hmm.
reinforcement and people saying literally this is so great that you're being this vulnerable because it helps me.
Yep.
That was the big thing for me. That's what got us taking it from the social media stuff from just kind of this fun light
Hmm.
to being more intentional about it was what it seemed to be doing for others. Once we realized, I mean, we were literally, and we still are to this day, and I don't use this word lightly, consistently overwhelmed with how much what we're doing is helping people by the messages we get, the comments, the emails, everything. And for me, that's all I needed to really hear
Yeah.
to push me to be okay being vulnerable and being just out there with who I am. And because if people are saying things to me like, when you say this or act like this or do this and then put it on the internet for us all to see, it makes me feel okay and seen and recognized. That's all I need to hear to want to keep doing it. It really is that it's helping, that me being me. I mean, I
That's
say it kind of jokingly a lot to Rachel or to friends of ours. Like, if me being me on the couch for an hour makes people that I don't even know, in other countries, come
yeah.
feel better about themselves,
Yeah.
that's all I need to hear. Let's keep doing it.
It's like medicine, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Okay. So today, I've been joking with my clients today. I'm like, "Oh, you're getting something fresh. I listened to something earlier today. Do you want to hear it?" And so I was listening to a video, and it was about like complex trauma survivors and healing process, right?
Mm.
And just how pervasive it is to have the wound of invisibility, the wound of not mattering, the I'll take liking and acceptance and pseudo connection because no one's ever actually known me or seen me enough to know that I feel loved, right? And so when you were and so I see that in both populations, and I know there's crossover. So I just wanted to highlight what you said is so meaningful, because like just me as a human being, not as a therapist, coach, or anything, like watching you do your thing on the couch or wherever you are, like that. What I know to listen to, it sounds like envy or jealousy, but it's the like I want to be able to do that.
Right.
Like I want to be able to be me and
Yeah.
have people be like, "Oh, that's fantastic,"
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just applauding you. I think it's profound.
Well, and something important to highlight there too. Well, thank you for that.
Hmm.
But something to add on and highlight that Rachel has witnessed, but also hears me say a lot, is that it goes both ways. People saying, to us and to me,
Mm-hmm.
hey, thank you so much for, sharing how you are and being vulnerable and just being out there with just, day to day kind of behaviors and stuff that, they don't necessarily feel comfortable with because it makes them feel seen or that it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Me hearing that then is
Mm-hmm.
healing for me, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm not, I know sometimes it seems to people watching a minute of me that's very curated,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just we took the phone out at that moment, and you're not seeing me at my worst all the time.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the the fact to hear that coming back heals me too, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
I feel the same way as folks say they feel
Yep.
that I'm helping them. I still feel awkward and weird, and like some of
Yep.
the ways I am is not okay, and I have to,
Yep.
So when 50,000 people, or in the cases of some of these videos, which is still mind-boggling to me, 5 million people say, um, "Thank you."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know how healing that is for me. It's so it goes both ways, and that's important to highlight, I think.
I'm glad you did, because what went through my mind earlier, something that you were saying and we were talking about, to me, like it's the therapist in me, it's like it's unshaming. When we shame ourselves or we're shamed, it's that message of I'm not okay, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken.
Right,
And so this is the antidote. Like,
right,
I can be me, it's safe to be me, it's more than safe, it's okay, and it's actually wanted and
exactly,
appreciated, and I'm not alone,
exactly.
all of that.
It's true. And Rachel, so before TikTok came along, that we had all the other social media, and a lot of us have a certain kind of feeling about, uh I feel like, and I could be wrong here, or people can disagree, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like before TikTok, social media for me and for a lot of folks I know presented this really interesting challenge. It was
Mm-hmm.
good for us professionally because we could get client, we could get business and put our stuff out there. But I felt like other than professionally, I didn't really want to be on it. I felt like it had a lot of negative aspects to it personally that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't love. And we battled a lot professionally with the company of whether we were going to stay on it because of what some of the negative sides of it seemed to be, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
But then,
I have like files and rabbit holes we could go down with that one
sure.
statement. Yes.
Sure. But
Yeah.
but then TikTok came along, and I got on it before Rachel did, and I was on it for a really long time before Rachel. Just kind of just as a passive kind of observer. I had my own personal account, but I didn't do anything with it. I was just watching it. And
Yeah.
because of the pattern recognition, I immediately was picking it up and saying things to her like, "This is different.
Yes.
TikTok is different." And it's actually, I found it very positive in a lot of ways, and healing. I would spend some time on TikTok and come away having learned things, first of all, that
Uh-huh.
were helpful, and also just feeling better about the connections that I found there. So I would say this to Rachel all the time, and she wasn't on it, so she didn't really understand or know. But that's important, I think, to highlight, because as I'm sure folks know who are on TikTok and who enjoy being on there,
Yeah.
and this has kind of now come back around to like Instagram a little bit, because it's kind of, yeah, there's a lot of similarities there now with the reels on Instagram, because TikTok's kind
Right.
of feeding that. But I think primarily on TikTok, because of how TikTok works, the algorithm, and what makes it different than the other platforms, is this community that we've been able to now establish, which is just grown to a size that we couldn't have imagined. Um, it does. I learn things every day. Like, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not throwing out there that as like a trite cliche thing. I really do, and we invite people in a lot of our posts to disagree, and to
Mm-hmm.
respectfully, as much as we can try to enforce that,
Yep.
which we can. But we try to really encourage like respectful disagreement, because that's the only way we're going to learn. And a lot of people will say, "Hey, I know you have this point of view, but let me throw this out," and so
Yeah.
I love going through the comments and the messages, because of course we love to hear this is helpful and we love you guys and this and that. But also I love just as much to hear some opposing points of view, or just other sides of the issues, because then it makes me sit there and think about, hey, could I look at this another way? Could I, especially because it's kind of a relationship account. It's tries to be much
Yeah.
Rachel and I, even
Yeah.
though I'm kind of more featured, you would say.
Yes.
Um, a lot of the folks who are kind of, in Rachel's position in relationships offer, opposing views, or hey, maybe you could try, this and this and this, or take into account how Rachel feels about this. And that's really helpful for me, because maybe if Rachel isn't able to say that, or is just busy, whatever the reason is, someone
Mhm.
else says, even if, as you know, right, as a therapist, even though someone may say the same thing Rachel says, but I'll hear it when someone else says it, but I won't hear it when Rachel says it, right? So it's
Classic.
classic. Really classic. But yeah, so I just that all of that to say, to get back to a very long-winded way of saying the social media aspect of the answer from earlier for me is that I have really found uh, TikTok especially, but also connecting that to Instagram a little bit. Um, Incredibly healing, incredibly satisfying in terms of connecting with others and not feeling alone, and
Yep.
feeling, like we all see and hear each other. And as a lot of us joke, right? A lot of us neurodivergent folks joke, it's like we now have all these friends, but at a distance where we want them.
Yes.
Right? It's like the perfect situation for us, because we got all these friends, but it's in your own house and I don't have to hang out with you for too long?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
That's like probably a good place for us to wrap up because
cool.
that's full circle. Like
Cool.
that was the post that made me your own birthday post where you're like, it's a no pressure day, no agenda, and hey, if anyone wants to hang out virtually later, and I was like, I would if I actually weren't going somewhere, like.
Yeah.
But that the truth of that is, like, I personally, and I hear this with other people too, like, I feel like I find more of my people who deeply connect and don't want to do like um, the fighting off dumbness that I heard you talk about, which I loved. I've heard numb and dumb, which doesn't mean people are dumb,
No.
just to be clear.
Yeah.
But we hate, most of us don't like small
Small
talk.
talk. Yeah.
So just to be able to like get to it, and I got to tell you, like doing therapy and coaching daily, like that's just the gear I'm always in. So it's really hard to like
Yeah, I bet.
pop back up into,
I bet.
oh, I gotta warm this up. I gotta like turn this on. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So as we start wrapping up, is there anything, Michael, that you wanted to talk about, to share, upcoming, any predictions, anything you want to come back for, just like any kind of final thoughts that you didn't have a chance to say earlier?
I mean, all I would say wrapping up is that I love what you're doing, right? I,
Hmm.
I love when you reached out to want to have this conversation, and then I looked into, like, what motivates you, what your values are, what you're hoping to do with having the conversations you're having,
Yeah.
is just really important and really inspiring. And also, the fact it's important to highlight that you reached out, right? And if you don't reach out, I don't have the opportunity to say yes, or no, or I'm too busy, or whatever, right? And but because
Yeah.
you reached out, and because you reached out and are doing the work you're doing, it, to me, signals this is a safe conversation to have, this is a
Mhm.
safe space. And then what you and I can then do by having this conversation is maybe then help other people.
Yeah.
And so I just think that that's important. And if people who are listening can be on either end, find themselves on either end of that, and are like, should I reach out? Yes, you should, right? Because you don't know if you don't ask. And
Yeah.
should I, if someone reaches out, should I, look at that email and like give it some thought, and not just, "Ah, I don't know this person, so move on." No, there's just to take that time to really pause and treat each interaction as, how you would want that interaction to be treated in that interaction. I think it matters more than ever, right? Especially right now, with
Yes.
how
Yes.
divided everyone, how divisive things feel right now. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm grateful for you reaching out and doing what you do, and that if folks who are listening find themselves in either of our positions, that they kind of say yes, and can do that stuff too.
Awesome. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm so glad you said yes. And also, I think I remember that email is like, I'm about to do some, I think it said moving or something like,
Oh yeah,
you're like, if I disappear, I will be back. And you're like, cool, I'll be here. I'm like, oh, cool.
absolutely. Yeah,
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 yeah.
absolutely. And I, if you feel down the road that you want to have another one of these conversations, I'm always down for it. If I'm around, I'm in Tanzania a lot, so if I'm here, which it would be impossible to do it from there for lots of reasons. Technology is the primary one, but time zones is another.
I
Um,
bet.
yeah, when I'm here, I'm happy to have these conversations for sure.
Cool, same. And I've not met Rachel, but tell her I said hello.
I will,
And
and it would
keep it
be
up.
cool the next time around. If there is a next time, it would be cool to get us both maybe together on one, or even Rachel on
Yeah.
one, because she's much better at this and less awkward than I
Oh,
am.
you did great. I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cool.
So thank you so much for
Thanks.
joining us.
Same.
Um, and with that, you guys, I'm leaving you with this episode of Reset with Renee. Stay tuned. I don't know what's next yet. It might be moving. I don't know. And so, yeah, just keep checking back, follow, like, and share. And thanks for being here and being a part of our conversation today.